people don't expect people who can really do things to be on the outside, because everyone who can really do things gets bought up. And I think particularly with the artwork, it's very easy to see, and not just the paintings rather than the collage, you know. I mean, that standard of painting, which is brilliant, why on earth is a sort of scrappy, dirty little underground band like Crass? Why can someone paint like that? And that's the shock of it, you know. The shock of it is the standard, the quality of it against the content of it, because people don't expect to see the sort of content we deal with presented in that sort of way. And I think it shocks all the preconceptions about something. I mean, one sees lots and lots of shocking collages, and I don't think they hit you in the same way that the paintings, that a lot of the paintings that we've put out do, in the sense that they're shocking because they're so bloody good.
I mean, we do use them as information sheets, sort of like a magazine, and I think that shocks people too, because they're usually there to enhance the inside solely. You know, it's a selling, the cover is there to sell the record, and we use it very much in a very different way. We use it for people to really get information from and to understand probably a bit more the content, and I think that's really what people get attracted to too, and feel maybe as a shock, because some of that information is not information that is readily available to most people.
I mean, a lot of people would say, oh, this LP is £2.50 or whatever it is, £2.25 for an LP. If it's that cheap, it must be shit. And that's another preconception which we try and get over, because if people see things that are cheap, they usually assume that they aren't going to be very good, that they've cut the corners and it's going to be a bad product. That is one reason for us to make it even better than the records that are full price.
There are alternatives to the way we do things. There are different ways of doing things. What there aren't alternatives to is maintaining your own integrity intact. So if bands in Sweden want to do it, they have to maintain their integrity. That is crucial. The idea that if you can get 5,000 records out rather than 500 means that you're going to be 5 times as powerful, so that it's actually worth compromising yourself a little bit by signing to some label, is actually totally fallacious, you know, because it doesn't matter. It's the quality of what goes on out, and it's your own integrity which is crucial. It's not the quantity. And which is almost like a truism, you go for quality rather than quantity.
Först hörde vi Democracy med Dirt, och därefter hörde vi Crass säga att det är bedrägligt att skriva på för ett stort bolag bara för att nå ut till fler människor. Det avgörande är kvalitet, inte kvantitet. För några år sedan så gjorde polisen razzior hos affärer som sålde Crass-plattor och beslagtog skivorna. Är det fortfarande så?
No, at the moment it isn't, although it could be quite easily. But at that time it was Asylum. Yes, it was Asylum. And they were advising shops not to stock it, not to sell it, and especially to people underage.
Anyway, if you bomb something, you might be sort of blowing up a building or blowing up a car, but you aren't changing anything. I mean, even if you shoot somebody, you aren't changing anything, because there'll be somebody else in their place. But if you can put out something which actually makes people think about their preconceptions, if you put out something like Reality Asylum, which through heavily attacking and criticizing the institution of religion may create space in people's mind for them to be able to think beyond the restrictions of that religion, for people to be able to think, well, maybe if I say God's a shit, there won't be a bloody thunderclap coming down to strike me down, because there won't be, you know, and it creates people, you know, it means that people will think beyond the restrictions that the system imposes, and it's those mental restrictions that is what keeps people in their place. We come into contact with a lot of people who are doing things in the same sorts of areas that we are. And it has developed, as with the Poison Girls and Captain Sensible, that, for instance, with Captain Sensible, he wanted to put out a record which was free of the restrictions which were imposed on him by the record label that he was on at the time. He wanted to make his own statement in an independent way, independent of the music business.
Which he couldn't on the label.
Which he couldn't on his own label.
No, he couldn't within his own band. I mean, let alone the label. I mean, the band weren't interested in what he'd got to say, so he decided to do something on his own where he could say what he wanted to say.
Do you, Ambassador Zorin, deny that the USSR has placed and is placing medium and intermediate range missiles and sights in Cuba? Yes or no?
Someone doesn't come to us and say, well, look, the way you've done this take, will you put it out? Because that isn't, we're not a business. We want to share energies and enthusiasm for things with people. So people come to us and we say, well, look, okay, that's good. Let's try and record it really well. Let's try and make the cover really nice, and let's work on it together if you want us to. If not, we'd like to come along just to sort of watch you work. And I mean, like with the Captain, he produced that. Well, he and I produced it, but he did most of the work on it. And that was a situation where someone said, well, look, I don't want you to take control of it. And I said, well, can I come along and just be a part of it, you know, to learn from you? And that way we learn from people. We're not sort of an authority that says that's how it should be. At the same time, we've got a lot of skills which we can offer people, and it's a sort of trying to share. I mean, it was very exciting to do the Captain because he was the first person who'd come along who knew how to use a studio, whereas most of the bands we record, we know better how to use a studio than they do. So, I mean, I learnt an enormous amount from him just watching how he worked on a control desk. And so that way we can grow.
We don't operate as a label in that one of the things about working with other bands is that we make an agreement with them that we'll only put out one single. So, for instance, with a band like the Snipers or the Flux of Pink Indians, who we had met through going around and doing gigs and just being in contact, you know, we can offer them the sort of pressing and distribution of the record on our label, which might give them more public exposure.
We got singles coming out by a band called Conflict, band called The Mob. We've just put one out by a band called Dirt. We've got, we're recording The Cravat, a band called The Cravats, and another band called Rudimentary Peni. And then we've got our own album coming out, and we've got another Bullshit coming out, and then a selection of poems by a guy called Andy T. I mean, that's about all we've got on the cards at the moment.